I wanted to be the next great jazz saxophonist, and spent all of my early life focused completely with that one goal in mind. And about midway through my second year of conservatory in a jazz saxophone performance degree, I became completely disillusioned with the state of jazz as it is, and began about a decade-long quest to find my own voice in music, which started with me moving to New York and playing in the subways at all hours for all hours. And then eventually I went back to graduate school at New England Conservatory and did a contemporary music degree, which helped. Whilst I was there, I started studying contemporary composition and really listening to a lot of music. I guess this had started earlier, but sort of just trying to absorb as much as possible. It became very obsessed with Morton Feldman and a lot of Japanese music. And these all sort of, I think, slowly began to seep into what I was doing. I also met an incredible composer named Anthony Coleman, who became really my mentor. And he, if you're not familiar with him, he plays on all the early Zorn, like Cobra pieces, John Zorn, and also played with Glenn Branca, all the early pieces, and is now quite an influential figure in like the downtown New York, both improvisation and composition scenes. But sort of under his tuition, I got asked to play at Lincoln Center in New York City a piece by Mauricio Kagel called Der Schall. And I think I view this piece as being a real milestone in the destruction of my conservatory education. And the piece, is anyone familiar with the piece, Der Schall? Yeah, no. It's written for about 5 musicians. It's horrible, I don't actually remember the exact specifics, but it's like 5 musicians and something like 52 instruments. My piece required me to play, amongst other things, a bass balalaika and to blow through organ pipes from the top. If you can imagine the organ pipes and me together, they were big. And the piece is written in a way, it's quite challenging, but it's written in such a way that you have to fail whilst playing it. Like there's no possible way to play it like perfectly. And getting up on Lincoln Center stage and performing this piece and failing. And I think there was a part of me that kind of broke in this idea. I think I just like saw this incredible beauty in this act of failure, I guess. And from then on, I think that became something that I really strove to achieve in my own music, and setting parameters in which I could never play well in the way that felt comfortable and that I had known, like I had to some degree mastered the saxophone as an instrument. And so I had tropes on the instrument, things that came, like I would play, licks and things. And I wanted to set up situations where I could never actually play those anymore. This combined with my beginning to record music, which didn't start until I was about 25. I think those happened at around the same time. And it sort of was a massive leap in my development in creating my own sound. So as an improviser, I was very used to creating in the moment and having spontaneous music. And once I was able to record myself, this became the most critical part of my compositional style. So really what I try to do, I guess, in composition is capture the essence of the moment in which the piece was composed. So I'm able to do this now using recording. I wasn't able to do this before because I would tend to overthink everything as I got it down on the page, and I think it never captured the spirit. I was never happy with anything that I composed before I was able to record. So I think there's two elements to my music making, which is the live performance and the recorded music. And in the live performance, this failure, idea of failure, bringing the guitar in and playing the saxophone at the same time, it's just silly. It's not going to work. So I think I had to let go of a lot in playing this way, a lot of my preconceived ideas of how I wanted to perform. And I still I still wrestle with it, with how things turn out. But this challenge of making this setup work is, I think, become really integral in how I create music. And that sort of came out of actually the recording. So when I first started recording, I still really saw myself as a saxophone player, but I began using other instruments that I didn't really know how to play very well. I never studied guitar or even learned how to play it really pretty intentionally so that I couldn't fall into things that you might fall into as a trained musician. I began to write songs more. I started writing sort of long form pieces when I was composing, and then it gradually has morphed into more song-based, and so that then transitioned into how I was performing live. So that's what I do. But the way I compose is still, I mentioned trying to capture this idea of the moment in which it happened. So it's really quick. I often set up a microphone and lay down track after track after track after track, and I try not to think about it too much whilst I'm doing it, or edit it during that time. And I just want to get music laid down, and I feel a place in myself when I'm making music that's really important to the process. I sort of go into a place in myself and am able to create there. And then definitely don't analyze whilst doing it. And then later on go back and spend quite a good deal of time editing and automating and creating pieces out of that. So I wanted to share, actually, we're going to do a group improvisation exercise, which is similar to the way I compose, in which we're going to layer ostinato patterns, creating kind of a base, a foundation for a piece. So when I compose, I usually have one idea or one instrument that I start with. So it's often the guitar, sometimes it's the saxophone, sometimes I'll have a vocal melody in mind. And then that starts the piece. And then from there, I layer each thing up, sometimes in time, preconceived ostinato, and sometimes counter to that. But whilst here, I had the opportunity to sort of work with my fellow residents and Santiago, and we had a kind of drum circle evening where we recorded, and it's really nice for me to have outside input. It's really actually one of my favorite things is to get people in to perform and to record music and then to create pieces out of it. I've done this with Anthony. I've done this with my collaborator, Eli Kessler. I've done it with my partner, Ben. And we sort of, by having other people in, I get things that I wouldn't have necessarily had on my own. And then I get to manipulate those and make them into songs, which is really fun. And so we did this for percussion drum circle. And I was just going to play you a clip of that and then play you what I made it into. So you ready? Here it goes. So this was just a little bit of us together. Oh, why did you stop? Oi. Take two. So you can hear one person, John, I think it's John, is leading the way on the big drum. And then we've all come in with our own part and held sort of our ostinato beat that we've created. So that was the foundation. This goes on. We recorded about an hour of music, and I've actually made 3 tracks so far out of it. But this one turned into...
Sorry, it's just easier to understand you.
Oh, with the mic. Okay.
So just put it closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this became this. Water beats onto it. I stuck in shadows creep. Fingers longer than her gaze, like feathers, voyage keep. Petals breathe out velvet skin with white So basically what I did was take that drums. I didn't actually edit that much. There's one cut in the drums, so it's pretty much straight as they were. And then added the guitars and the voice and other instruments. There's a little bit of Julian on there. And I think, I don't know, I've had different people contribute a little bit to it. Does anyone have any questions about that before? I thought I'd play one other piece that I've composed here. So this, you'll hear there's a guitar, the main guitar part, this. This was the first thing I recorded. This became the foundation for the piece. It's one track, just one take. And almost everything, with exception of vocals, I'll sometimes do multiple takes. Everything else is usually one take and then edited. So Yeah. So that's what I've been working on. It's funny listening to those now in this room. I've been in front of a set of monitors for a lot of hours recently, and it sounds totally different in here. But I guess, does anyone have any questions about anything? Or Santiago?
I don't know if you thought about it already or not, but because the live set that you've built, this is kind of a set that you've been touring with for the last, I don't know, years or months. Or
Yeah.
And these songs are very, like, much more constructed, and they have all of these collaborators that you had, and the tuba, and it's something that you cannot play as a solo set in the same way. I don't know if you've thought of a way to bring these songs into a live situation.
Yeah, I actually will be bringing these songs, performing them at a festival in Glasgow called Counterflows in April. And for the past year, I always used to play solo, and in the past year I've started working with a trio, which is two people that play guitar in addition to myself playing guitar, and one of them also uses a sampler for horns sometimes, but only when I have like horns that are sort of long tones, which often occur in I often use clarinets or saxophones to sort of pad pieces. I think it's always frustrating for me to figure out, because not only on this album, but on my other albums, I compose pieces that are much more grand than I can do on my own live. And I don't want to use electronics myself live. I used to sometimes use tape recorders. I tried using a sampler, but I feel much more in tune with the set when I have control in this way over everything. And so it is something that I wrestle with. And I think in opposition to sort of like trying to perform these live, I really want to create an album that sounds more like this. And I always go into creating a new album with the idea that it will sound more like my live set. So far, I've released one cassette that I think came pretty close. But I think I want too much. The tool of recording is a tool in itself, I guess, and it allows you to create something that's bigger than what you can do on your own. And I always want to take advantage of that. But as far as performing it live in Glasgow, it will be the trio that myself and the two people that I've been working with. And then I believe I might change my mind, tuba and cello also, and maybe clarinetist. So instead of having Olin, who plays the sampler with the clarinets in my band, having someone who will actually be able to play the clarinet parts, like the low bits. I do think when it comes to instruments that I play, have a lot of trouble handing over the reins. Like I am very particular about how I want everything, despite like the seeming chaos. So, when it comes to like saxophone, guitar is a bit easier, but when it comes to saxophone and clarinet, I have a very clear idea of how I want those instruments to sound in my music. And I think it's because of the fact that I've wrestled so much with those instruments and how those instruments sound to me, and going from, I guess, our perceived ideas of what a saxophone should sound like and trying to create my own voice on that instrument, which wasn't easy for me to sort of let go of the idea that I should play really beautifully and technically proficient all the time. So now that I've sort of come to this relationship with those instruments, I don't like letting other people do it. But I think maybe I'm becoming more confident in my music. And I think also, hopefully, I guess if people decide that they want to work with me, then they will be open to exploring the kinds of sounds on the instruments that I want to achieve.